Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Silver stackers are finally getting the last laugh. Silver is comfortably sitting at $35 and people are extremely bullish, rightfully so. We are sitting at 12-year highs. Last time silver did anything like this was when it was on its way to $50, and back then what pushed silver to $50 is nowhere near as extreme as we are living in today. So if that pushed silver to $50 from the 2008 to 2011 run of the recession/depression, financial crisis, billions of dollars in stimulus leading to that, now we're in a recession/depression, credit financial crisis, trillions of dollars of stimulus since 2020, a global pandemic, all these wars, and the BRICS announcing potentially their currency with, de-dollarization, and on top of that, the election. So if that, and not only that, we also have a massive silver shortage or a supply deficit of 1.2 billion ounces in the last 7 years, and it's supposedly getting worse and worse. If that was to push silver to $50 back then, what could it do today? Make sure you subscribe, because I post daily videos updating you on what's happening. We're also going to be covering some other articles, though, not just that. Why is silver soaring? A financial perspective involving America's breaking point. Silver at 12-year highs from Commerce Bank. We have this market report. Silver soars as gold hits yet another record high. We have this one. The silver wave may have a ways to go. I mean, yeah, we're just getting started in terms of silver. Silver is just above half of its all-time high, and if you think that's the last time, or in 2011 was the last time it's going to hit $50, you will be sadly mistaken. Like I always mention, people will be wishing they could build a time machine and go back to the days when silver is only $35. So, without further ado, if you wanted to purchase some of this shiny stuff, you can email slayer@milesfranklin.com or call 330-485-6172. That man, Silver Slayer, I heard is not a stingy guy. I heard that he will match prices if anywhere is cheaper, which usually isn't the case, but I heard that he's just a great guy. He's not a salesman. He likes helping out people with good prices, preserve their wealth, and he's known to do that. Ask any of his clients. I'm sure they will say the same. So anyways, thanks for listening to those announcements. Let's talk about this. So James Turk warned King World News that $50 silver is days or weeks away, not months. First, though, who is James Turk? Let's check this out. James began his career at Chase Manhattan Bank, where he worked on assignments in Thailand, Hong Kong, Philippines. Since then, he's the manager of the commodity department at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and held various advisory roles in money management. 2001, he co-funded Gold Money with his son, remains active board member. Okay, so he's a finance guy, finance, or 5 decades in finance, yada, yada. So yeah, he's a finance guy. Just wanted to give some backstory on who he is. I think that's important when someone's throwing a name out there. But anyway, so he quote, and I quote, "You know what I find noteworthy about all these record highs in gold, Eric? It's the lack of excitement normally seen at bull market tops. Few people are paying attention. That usually means a bull market has much further to run, from which we can presume that gold at 2,700 is still nearly in this uptrend," which is a good point. Even though silver is sitting at $35, you're not seeing that on mainstream news. Even gold is sitting at all-time highs ever. If you ask a neighbor or a friend or someone that's not investing into precious metals, maybe aren't into stocks, maybe aren't, I bet they aren't aware unless you specifically told them, or maybe if they're lucky, they are getting some type of secondary media outlet, but mainstream isn't covering it. But what about when silver, this boom of silver being Bitcoin 2.0, like Wall Street Silver kind of did with that hype, but imagine on a bigger scale where all that money comes from, especially people not trusting the banks, taking the money out of the banks and putting them into precious metals like gold and silver. which they will find silver probably more attractive since it's cheaper, and especially as it starts to go upwards, and people hopefully realize silver's true value, its true nature. I'm sure that's not going to happen on all cases. There will be people trying to get in out thinking it's a get rich quick scheme, but the majority hopefully will be able to park their money in something as the system is collapsing. And when that happens, when silver's on mainstream news like Bitcoin was in 2017, or I guess a little later than that. I was covering it in 2016, 2017. But, when Bitcoin is the new thing, when Coinbase is the number one downloaded app on Android and iOS, when people who've never invested a single dollar in their life are now trying to figure out where to buy silver, that's where we see it. And by then, it will be too late for those people. Most people invested into Bitcoin after it already exploded, right? I was getting in at $800. Now it's $70,000, right? When I told people to buy Bitcoin, was when it was like $800. You got to get in before the curve. So anyway, sorry for that rant. It's a good point though, right? It's still a very small niche market, silver is. So today looks to me like the early stage of other great bull markets. In gold, I've lived through since 1971, and it's like $45 in 1971 on its way to $200 2 years later, or $100 in 1976, then climbing to 1980 high of $850, or $340 in 2002 on its way to $1900 in 2011 after the great financial crisis. The current uptrend began in November 2023 when gold finally hurdled 2,000 into new record highs. Since then, it's been stair-stepping its way higher to new records as we see in the chart. And yes, see, this is what I call stabilization. Gold is stabilizing. It doesn't just skyrocket, because if it did, then it wouldn't last up there. Like Bitcoin, once again, Bitcoin in 2016, 2017 went from like $800 to $16,000 within like a matter of months. And that's why it crashed and took 5 years to recover. If it would have gradually went up like this, it wouldn't have ever crashed for all those years, because prices are stabilizing. And silver is somewhat doing the same. I think the silver, really has shot up in the last, week or so, from $29 to $35. There definitely should be some type of pullback, but that might not happen, especially since silver's suppressed, and with the election in a couple of days, and with the BRICS meeting. I mean, what normally would have pulled silver back might not happen because of the current events that we're experiencing right now. And going off that, silver right now is $50, is far from its $50 record reached in 1980 and again in 2011. But I'm expecting a new record high soon. And it's sure, why wouldn't it? If gold is at all-time highs right now, then why wouldn't it make sense for silver to also hit all-time highs, especially since silver always follows gold, and especially since silver has other opportunity far beyond gold? So why wouldn't silver, if gold already is doing it? It wouldn't be that crazy to think, right? I've updated the same, and let me pause. It's because people are desensitized to lower prices, and most of us have never seen $50 silver. So for us, we are used to the $20, $25, $30 range. So to think 50, it's, a lot of people aren't that optimistic, especially that don't understand why silver has value. So they update some charts. Post-breakout, red arrow, left side of the chart indicates potential massive upside gains. So saying that there's still a lot more. I mean, we are living in silver's in a 44-year cup and handle. 44-year cup and handle. And silver's up over 80% in the last 2 years alone, which is insane to think about. So $100 silver in sight. So here's what I see unfolding for precious metals as we move towards the year end. Gold will continue climbing, making new record highs. Silver is going to catch up with its own new records too. It looks to me $50 is days, weeks away, not months. Once $50 hurdled, decades of base building and driven by unstoppable demand will launch silver into major bull markets towards fair value, which I've always said is true. If silver breaks through 50, we're talking about 40-year resistance levels. $50 in 1980 and in 2011, both concrete ceiling at 50. That is so much momentum just building up. It's like a volcano. Gold's volcano already erupted. Silver's hasn't erupted yet. And the longer it takes, the more magma builds up. And once it does erupt, it is catastrophic. and we are in a 44-year cup and handle with silver. So, a lot of people saying that this would never happen, but right now, it is happening. It is. Last time we saw silver $35, or when it was reaching up to 35, was when it was at 50 in 2011. That's a fact. So, I'm not saying it will hit $50 in days or weeks, but you know, it's not. I mean, if ever, this would be the time to say that, though, right? If ever, I'm sure you've heard channel after channel after channel talk about, silver about to explode. But when they say that, this time is the most likely and the most rationally, sound-minding, perspective behind it, or sound-minded perspective behind it, without trying to amp things up or hype things up. It's just, this is the most realistic. So they talk about the gold to silver ratio under 30 and probably close to the historic ratio of 16-1. And if gold does not reach the near-term target of 3,000, that's a big if, but we're thinking about ratio falls to 30, that's $100 silver in sight. So yeah, let's keep moving on. Why is silver soaring? This is the important one. I thought that was interesting, though. So why is silver soaring? A financial perspective involving America's breaking point. So silver is soaring because the banking system is approaching its breaking point. That is very true to some degree. I don't know how much of that is really affecting the price, I guess, from the backbone or behind the curtains to the mainstream side of things. It's impossible to tell. Probably a little bit of both. But yeah, many analysts have described the rise in silver prices using traditional market dynamics, citing increasing tech demand. And this is what I was talking about, right? Who knows the ratio or the percentage from the banking side of things, banking approaching, and what the mainstream is talking about. Traditional market dynamics, citing increasing tech demand, a reduced capacity for producing more as causes. However, MarketWise founder and financial editor Porter Stransbury has considered the phenomenon from another point of view, linking it to an upcoming destruction of the U.S. banking system. And it's both. It's both. The monetary side of things and the industrial side of things, right? Silver's the best of both worlds. It's a little bit of both. Stransbury states that the real banking investors like Warren Buffett, which only buys silver, he doesn't touch gold at all. Ray Dalio have been shredding bank stocks since 2020, selling millions of dollars of Bank of America, UBS, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs shares. Reason behind these actions is $1 trillion deep hole in commercial banks' balance sheets. According to his analysis, or actually, let's look at this. He explained 1/3 of the reserves of our biggest banks are deeply underwater. That's because they bought $2 trillion worth of long-term bonds and mortgages at interest rates around 1%. According to his analysis, the value of these assets has gone down due to the rising interest rates causing the fall of institutions like Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic. However, instead of dealing with the root of the problem, the Federal Reserve expedited a loan program to try to patch the problem and postpone the crisis 1 year after the program has been closed and these loans must be repaid. That is a good point. And that's what I was mentioning before back then, is like, it's coming from somewhere. And this is what I've always explained it as. It's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card. That's exactly what our financial system is doing. We're trying to get ourselves out of debt by replacing it with more debt. It's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card, and it's going to catch up, and it has been catching up. And the consequence of that is what you're seeing. And that's why we take advantage of that, investing, or I guess preserving our wealth in precious metals. This event can sink big institutions like Bank of America. Bank of America reports it has $86 billion in unrecognized mark-to-market losses on that bond portfolio. The bank has tangible equity, that is real equity, of $200 billion. If rates go above 5%, I believe Bank of America's tangible equity would be wiped out, he stressed. However, not only Bank of America would be at risk, but the whole financial system would have to run to raise capital if interest rates keep rising, with bank runs ensuing. I really do like this. I really do, think this is something that's probably not talked about as much. Especially even myself. I talk about the supply deficits. I talk about how much silver is needed and the shortage. But there's another thing happening as well behind the scenes, which is also what's benefiting gold, is the monetary side of things. But there's two different reasons, and that's why I do also say that someday silver will take on a life of its own, regardless of what gold's doing, regardless of what stock markets are doing, regardless of what the dollar index is doing, because silver is extremely valuable in what it's used for. Silver's risen more than gold this year. This was evident from the increased gold to silver ratio, almost 90 in August, September. Of course, the ratio is going to have to lower when we're talking about a 90-to-1 ratio. That's way too high. It had to drop back down. When it drops down, that means that silver is outperforming gold. Thereafter, the price ratio fluctuated to around 85 for more than a month. Silver thus managed to track the price movements in gold. Seems that investors now view silver as cheaper alternative, which would not be surprising given that gold prices continue to rise and reach new record levels, right? Why would you want to invest into something at the most expensive price it's ever been? The only reason you would is because you have faith that it could go higher, which, true, I do believe gold is a great investment as well, but I just think silver is better. My name is Silver Slayer for a reason. I think silver has more opportunity. Silver is more valuable on what it can bring to the table, just like why Warren Buffett doesn't touch gold with a 10-foot pole, but he owns 350,000 tons of silver, or something, over a billion ounces, something ridiculous like that, which is, I'm not exaggerating. It's like he owns like 1.2 billion ounces of silver. So on Friday, the silver price rose by more than 6%. This continued at the beginning of the week. So yeah, that's really where we're at. Silver soars as gold hits yet another record high. These are just others, mentioning what's happening. I think there is no just cookie cutter response of why silver did what it did, but I do have a little bit of a hunch. It's probably because of, here, let's scroll back a little bit. So silver's sitting at like $29, right? And then we see this huge up leg. I think this is when all this blue is when people were fearing the BRICS meeting, especially, it was a Friday. I think it was when people were aware of the BRICS meeting happening today and tomorrow, by the way, the 22nd and the 23rd. Stay tuned for a podcast with Andy Schekman. I'm not going to cover any of that stuff because I'm not the BRICS expert. I'm going to have Andy Schekman on, and he will break all that down, so stay tuned for that. I think we're doing it on Thursday. But also the election. So once it broke the 32, I just think people are piling on because they know all these other events are most likely not going to be pushing it down. So everyone's kind of just piling on right now. Do I think there'll be a correction at some point? Has to. You don't want it to just keep going up. I don't know where the pullback would be to. I don't think it'd be pulling back too much, but there has to be some type of small correction. Maybe like 33.50 or 34. For it to go up to 36, whatever. But who knows? We are living in interesting times, so expect interesting things. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Let me know what you think about this stuff. Do you think that silver's days or weeks away, not months? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.